Hi there, I'm Woolly Wormhead, and I am here today to talk to you about the humble knitted hat, the woolly hat. I have a bit of a thing for woolly hats, it has to be said. Um, it's my special interest. I've now been publishing hat knitting patterns for 20 years, which is a long time. Um, it always shocks me when I say that. And in that time, I have built up so much knowledge about hats. I have taught hat knitting, I have taught hat design, I have been running hat clinics where people come and try on the hats and we have questions and I talk to knitters about what their concerns are about hat knitting, what puts them off hat knitting, what they'd like more from hat knitting. And so I've got all of this knowledge that I would try and share as much as possible in this video with you today. Now, hats are magical. They are so much more than something we just put on our head to keep ourselves warm. They are. They are the most three-dimensional garment that we can wear, which once they kind of like, as long as they fit around the brim, this part of the head here, they can go off in any direction one, which allows us lots of scope for design and playing and exploring and trying things out. They're actually really adaptable. There's only one of them. You haven't got to knit a matching pair. And if the hat that you've knitted doesn't suit you or doesn't fit you, there's always a head in need of a hat. There are lots of charities that will take hand knit hats, and you no doubt have friends and family that will have your hand knit hat. They would absolutely love to have one. And they are the perfect dopamine project, let's put it that way. I mean, for those of us that like small knits, quick knits, who don't have the attention span for something much bigger, hats up, hats are your thing. I promise you. So let me just talk about some of the ways that they can be constructed. And then we're going to have a look at some of the ways that they can be styled because there is so much more to hats than just beanies. All right. So let me get my hat samples out and show you some of the ways they can be constructed first. Most of us, when we start hat knitting, start with the basic beanie. Normally a bottom up beanie, cast on a number of stitches in the round or flat to be seamed up the back, whichever way you work in it. But they're worked from the bottom up to the crown and they're normally a fitted beanie, something like this. There is nothing wrong with a beanie, but there is so much more to hand knit hats than beanies. They're really good for keeping you warm. They're really good, quick projects. They're ideal if you need to wear them under a helmet or you're doing some outdoor sport or live in a climate that needs a very close, proper head hugging hat. Beanies are good for that. And they could be knit double, they can have folded brims, really good for warmth. But there is a lot more to the construction method of a hat than just working bottom up. So I have here some sideways knit hats. That's actually the hat. Look, that's the way we knit it, around that way. We work that way. Now, sideways knit hats are extra fun. They're one of my favorites because you can do really fun things with your stitches because when stitch patterns turn through 90 degrees, they take on different properties. When you just flip it on its side, it behaves differently. Garter stitch, when worked sideways, acts as a one-by-one ribbing. And it's actually nicer to wear than a one-by-one ribbing because garter stitch is really, really squishy, right? And it hugs the head in a way that ribbing can be quite tight sometimes. Garter stitch has a little bit more give, it's softer somehow because of the way that it's constructed, that fabric is constructed. So sideways knit hats, you work them as a series of panels or wedges. Let's get this one up the right way. You work one panel across and then you just keep repeating it all around. Now, when you work a bottom-up hat like this one, you work the brim first, then you work the body, and then you work the crown. In a sideways knit hat, in every single row, you work a little bit of the brim and a little bit of the body and a little bit of the crown in every single row. They're wedges that come together. It's kind of like if you have like a beach ball with the bit sections that join at the top. That's kind of like what a sideways knit hat is like. Now, these are particularly good because you can try them on as you go. The advantage of these is that you can just work more or less panels to fit your head. With a vertically knit hat, once you've cast it on, if it doesn't fit when you get to this point, you think, it doesn't fit, you've got to rip all of that out. It's frustrating, I get it. But if you're concerned about fit, try sideways. It's a much, much better method for being able to try on and see how things go. Another advantage, here's another sideways knit hat. Another advantage, apart from how the cables in this particular instance, stitches work differently, is that the pattern becomes easier to memorize because you have to work the same panel over and over again. Let me just hold that so you can see it better. Whoop, that way. You get to memorize the entire pattern. So you don't have to pay attention to lots of different things at different points. It'll be the same thing, one large repeat worked over and over and over again. So, there's less to remember, less places to go wrong. You don't get stuck in the middle of a long section working a plain bit knitting for the body. And the first panel can be treated as your swatch. That would be perfect way to try out and make sure that you're getting the right gauge and the fabric is nice for your hat. And then you just can try it out. See what happens to your stitches when you turn them sideways. Those cables are lovely work sideways. You do have to practice a few different techniques with this because like all hats, we need to do some shaping at the crown. So in a vertical knit hat, that'll be increases and decreases. In a sideways knit hat, that's short rows. Now, short rows aren't difficult, they're just different. And when we work sideways, we are generally going to start with a provisional cast on and most likely finish with a graft. Or if you're not sure about grafting, you could try out a 3-needle bind off. So instead of having a different type of cast, there's a different type of cast on. Instead of having a cast on at the bottom and the bind off at the top, because when you close the top, you are binding off. You are casting on and binding off the length of the hat all the way across here at somewhere. They're the differences. You're turning your hat through 90 degrees, so your stitches behave differently. You get to try different shaping techniques. You get to try out different ways of seeing how it fits. Lots of different things that you can do with sideways knit hats. Now, another favorite method of mine is modular construction for hats. Now, a lot of people, when they hear modular, think they've got to do a lot of sewing and weaving in ends, and that is not true at all. Modular hats do not mean lots of extra sewing. In fact, they're actually even better for those of us with short attention spans that need a quick dopamine hit than sideways knit hats. I mean, these sideways knit hats with the panels, they're nice little quick dopamine hits. You can work one panel, put the hat down, and then work another one later. With modular, you can just work one square, put it down, come back to it because you're only working one square at a time. Now, this is a modular pattern, and there is no weaving of the ends until you get to the end, or unless you change colour. And even then, you can carry the floats. It's all picked up and worked as you go. I've got some more here, because modular can mean interesting. Can I put this one on? Do you mind? This obviously verges into the kind of like hats are beyond beanies, but this is a modular hat. It doesn't just have to be a beanie. There is no extra sewing that's gone on. Let's sort my hair out. And it's really, really interesting shapes to explore, all done through modular. And again, going beyond the beanie, other modular methods. You can get into some really fun styles once you start to break out of the kind of like the bottom-up beanie arena. Now, bottom-up isn't bad. It's just what we kind of get taught. And I think the thing with hat knitting is that you can go beyond that. If you want to stay with vertically knit hats, then things can be just as interesting. You can explore different stitch patterns. They don't have to be plain beanies. They don't have to be hair squashers. They can be roomy and breathable. They can be fun and sculptural to wear. Pixie hats. I'm going to get into styles in a minute, I know, but pixie hats are a favourite of mine. because they can be something completely different. They're not just for kids. You can have fun with your hats. You can have fun knitting them and you can have fun wearing them. So that is a kind of rough overview or some examples of different ways of constructing the hats. The way that I see it is thinking about the direction that our stitches go. If our stitches follow the line of knitting upwards, like this example beanie I have here, if the stitches go upwards, it's a vertically knit hat. If the stitches, when worn, are going around the hat, then it's sideways. If they are going in different directions and they are not all vertical or not all sideways and they're a combination of both, then they're modular. Think about the direction that your stitches are going. That's what I kind of recommend, to think about this as a way of understanding the construction methods. Yes, they have different shaping methods. Yes, they have different cast on and cast off. They have pros and cons of each. A bottom-up hat, the pros are that you can keep knitting until it's long enough and then you bind off, or you do your shaping and then you bind off. But the downside of a bottom-up hat, or of a top-down, is a little bit easier. But a bottom-up hat, one of the downsides is that once you've cast on, you've kind of stuck with that number. And if you have to change size, then you've got to rip the whole lot out. Sideways knit hats, you don't have to do that. You can try them on as you go and just keep going until it fits. The downside is that the length is kind of set in place. But that's adjustable, and you only have to knit one panel to find out whether it's going to be the right length for you. Modular, well, that's got a whole other area. Depending on where you want to start on your hat, you can actually make much more custom fit hats with modular knitting, because you just make sure it fits around the brim, however you're doing it, and then you work from there. I hope that's given you a little idea of the different types of hat construction methods. I could talk about this for hours because I love exploring hat construction. As I said before, as long as it fits around the brim, it can go in any direction we want. It's the most three-dimensional garment that we can wear. And it's so much fun. Different hat construction methods are not scary. They're really, really not. They're just different. And it helps you stretch your skills and it gives you something interesting to look at. So why not try it? So now that we've talked a little bit about construction methods, and that really is the tip of the iceberg, there's so much more to it. Let's have a look at some hat styles. The first one I want to show you, and I am going to demo all these, so I apologize if my hair becomes a mess. This style is one that suits just about everyone. And this is a little brimmed hat. You can wear it off to the side if you want to. You can wear it back. You can, let me bring it down here. This brim is incredibly flattering and suits most head styles, most shapes of hair, most shapes of face, people with glasses. It suits everyone. It's nice and roomy, so it doesn't squash your head. And that brim, it just kind of be worn in different ways. You can wear it off center. And it is a really, really, see, hair mess. See, even a tiny small amount of my hair can get squashed. I do understand the concern with squashed hair under hats. But this style is fantastic, and it is a really, really popular style. Now, other styles, the way I've got slouch hats. Okay, so this one is one I showed you earlier. Now, this is what I call the comfort slouch. It's not too kind of like slouchy hanging down the back. It's not too wide. And it does the thing of sitting nicely around the head, it hugs around the ears. It's nice and warm, but it's got some room in it. And it's the comfort slouch, what I call the comfort slouch. Not too slouchy in any which way direction. It just kind of sits nice around the head. Now, this is another example of the slouch hat. This one is a little bit roomier on me. The garter stitch is really stretchy when turned sideways. But that's a style that you can wear with long hair. You can put your hair up inside it, wear it which any way, or you could fold the brim up if you wanted. Now this one is a little bit small for me. I don't knit all my hats to fit me, believe it or not. I'm actually kind of I'm a process designer. Now this is one of the sideways knit slouchy hats. You've got this lovely deep cable brim and this lacy body, but it can actually be worn. I'm trying to, there we go. It can be worn in different ways. Got more of a vintage look to it like that when it's worn up like that, or you can wear it down hanging back. Hats come in different styles. We can wear them in which way we want to. Doesn't just have to sit on our head. It can sit wide, it can sit up, it can be asymmetrical as well. And now this one is definitely one that's a little bit small for me. But this is a cloche style, an asymmetrical cloche style that can be worn. Let's get this around this way. It can be worn that way around. Or if we wanted, that little bit can go at the back if we wanted a little bit more neck coverage. As I say, it's a little bit small for me, this one. It was made for one of my models that was modeling for the photographs. But, you know, it's another kind of like helmet style. It's got an extension around the back to keep your neck on if you want, or you can wear it off asymmetrical. Then we have the more sculptural styles, which I love, but that's me, but not everybody does. But if you want something that's more dressy, if you want a hat that's going to match an outfit and you're dressing up and you want to have something that grabs some attention maybe, or you just want to have fun, then there are lots of styles that you can do that do that. Or if you are more of a beanie person, then they can be just as interesting. And they can have different types of brims here. Now that's another thing that I want to talk about while we're talking about messy hair indeed. While we are talking about styles, brims do not all have to be ribbed brims. They don't all have to be garter stitch brims. You can have stocking stitch brims. You can have any stitch pattern in the brims as long as it's got some give. Then you can use it in the brim. They do not have to be ribbed. Ribbing is so commonly used, and I understand why. But you can break out of that as a hat. So you can do what you want with your hat. Right? This one that I just showed you has got a folded stocking stitch brim. Let me just bring that up there and turn it inside out. So it's a nice warm brim. Stocking stitch is actually really, really good as a brim fabric. It's gentle. It looks nice to wear. It's not quite as kind of like head grabbing as ribbing is. It can be something different with something textured at the bottom. I mean, I love pixie hats. Because why not? Why should kids just wear them? Right? Why can't they go on adults? But what I've got here is 3 little tucks or welts that are forming an edge, and it does the job. It stays on the head. You know, it's not going to fall off. But it's interesting. It's a different type of detail that you can wear at the base of your hat. Hats, as I keep saying this, but so much more than ribbed beanies or beanies with ribbed brims. So much more than that. This one has got a garter stitch brim. Now, garter stitch I find particularly nice, whether it's worked vertically here, because it's nice and soft. It's soft to wear, but it's also soft to look at. It keeps you warm without it looking like overstretched or too tight. So if you're somebody that doesn't want a really head-hugging looking hat, garter stitch brims are a nice way to go. Even when it's turned sideways. Right, so this one, it works really nice and stretchy. And it is much softer to look at and softer to wear. It's really squishy and lovely. Ribbed brims, I have their place. If you are a ribbed brim hat person, that's okay. This one here is the one that I was showing earlier. It's in a heavier weight yarn. So it's why it looks chunky because it's a chunky yarn compared to this one, which is in a finer yarn. Again, yarn choice makes a difference in your hat knitting in terms of how it's going to look, how much it's going to stretch, how much it's going to keep you warm. We're all living in different climates. We all have hats for different purposes. But the ribbing, if you want to go with ribbing, it doesn't just have to be plain by one by one. This is a twisted rib, and then there's a line of purl stitches to give it some interest and break up the lines in it. In fact, something very, very simple, just like columns of twisted stitches, can transform a quite plain beanie into something much more interesting. So that's kind of like, there are so many styles, so many hat styles beyond the beanie. You can put ear flaps on anything. You can put slouch on anything. You can put bobble hats on anything. You can put like a helmet extra section around the hat on just about any style. I've got pixie berets and berets with ear flaps and all sorts. Styles of hats do not just have to be half dome, watch cap, however we know its shape. They can be so much more than that. So if you're thinking to yourself, well, actually, some of those hats styles look quite interesting, but I'm not sure how to measure my head or get the right size for me, then I have some help for you. I do have a free ebook on my website. If you sign up to my Woolly Hat Society, which is my newsletter, that free ebook will guide you through how to measure your head, how to determine how much negative ease you need, and then have a reminder of some of the hat styles. Now, when you measure your head, do you make sure you measure it at the widest point, which is across here? All right. I know we tend to wear our hats down, but there's very, very little difference for the majority of people between that measurement and that measurement. It's just done at a slightly different angle. So do it across the widest part, because then that gives you your to fit size. Your finished size is the size of the hat, which is going to be smaller because you need negative ease. Now, negative ease, how much you need depends on your style, your yarn weight, your own personal preference. So negative ease is, yes, the hat has to be smaller, but how small depends on a few things. I normally go with around about 12% or 2 to 3 inches, depending on how big the head is. Obviously, a larger head can take more negative ease. A smaller head has less. Finer yarn weight can accommodate more negative ease. A heavier yarn weight, not. Because if you think about heavy yarn weight, this chunky, it's only going to stretch so far, because that's what our negative ease uses. It uses the natural stretching fabric, right, to make sure it stays on our head, because it needs to stay on our head. But chunky yarn is only going to stretch so much compared to a fine yarn, because there's many more stitches to the inch, which means that there's more room to give, because it's kind of like a, think of it like a spring kind of zigzagging back and forth. So that's some of the things that you need to think about. And I think this is one of the places where people go wrong. And that's why I wrote this guide to choosing the right size and style and how to measure your head, as well as the measurement around your circumference. You'll also need to know your depth. And I generally measure from the base of the ear up to your crown here. We all vary in our circumference and length, and in both. I've got a relatively large circumference and fairly average length. My partner is even larger in circumference and even longer in length. We all vary. So knowing those measurements is crucial. It's like any other garment that you're going to knit for yourself, because a hat is a garment. You want to measure, you want to swatch, you need to know what size you're aiming for. And I say, I think that's where most people go wrong when it comes to hat knitting, because one size does not fit all. I hope that's been helpful. I could talk for hours about hats. Do have a look at the ebook that's free available on my website, because that will help you choose the right one. And have fun with your hat knitting.